Hi, welcome to this short video featuring Content Manager and the various Office integration tools available. We're going to be looking at desktop integration with Word, desktop integration with Outlook. We'll also take a look at SharePoint and even go as far as showing you some Office 365 integrations through a web browser. The Office 365 integration allows for integration with Content Manager and not necessarily having any of the desktop application installed. The first couple of examples I will be demonstrating will feature the desktop client and kind of assumes it has been installed on a user's desktop. So let's get started. I'm going to kick this up to our full screen so we can get a better view. Now you'll notice I've already got a date registered or date filed search queued up there for today. I'm going to hit the search button and you'll see I currently have no records in Content Manager. And what we'll use this for is to just track any records that we do create through the various inputs, i.e. Word, Outlook, and SharePoint, so we can track them into Content Manager. So let's start with Microsoft Word. What a user might do is come to the file, open up Word, create a new blank document, just like this. Okay, so I'm going to give my document a title. So I'm going to do Word Demo. I'm going to just do a little quick code here that I know to generate a lot of text. So there we go. I've quickly been working on my document. It's called a Word demonstration. And let me just do my normal editing that I would do. I might make this color of the ink blue. I can go ahead and increase the font size. I can go ahead and put this in the center of the page. So this represents a user doing their daily creation of Word content, and this would be considered a net new document. It does not exist until now, and I'm going to register it into Content Manager. I've exposed here on the toolbar a Content Manager ribbon or a section of a ribbon that has all of the relative commands. Notice we can check in a document, we can check it in as something, we can do a check-in on close, and we can open a document from Word, which we'll look at a little bit later. These are also available through the Content Manager ribbon that gets installed, and you can see there are the same options across this ribbon. So the first thing I'm going to do is do a check-in, and this is now going to take me to the record type selection. Record type selection will vary on your organization and are usually the result of the business analysis. Depending on how it's configured, each department may have a record type, or you may have different record types to serve different purposes. I'm going to grab this document record type, click OK, and it will then take me on to the next section. Excuse me. The next part that pops up is what we call the registration form. When we are creating a new record, it wants to collect metadata. Again, the metadata you're seeing on the screen is simply an example. Your organization's metadata requirements will vary, and that will be based on the business analysis. So right now, it does pick up the title of the document, Word Demo. You can see it has self-populated. The user, of course, could amend that, make changes, or add something, maybe today's date. Some fields like date created, container, home are a preset, defaulted for the user. They don't need to populate that. Other metadata could be optional or could be required. All of these decisions can be made in the business analysis process. When I'm finished completing the metadata, I'm going to click OK. It's going to go through, and I still have the document open. It does come back with a record number. There it is, revision number 1. So the user is still at this point able to edit and amend the Word document, and when they're finished, they will be asked one last time if they want to save it. I'm going to go ahead and close my document. We'll give it a second to close. Just while you are watching, the demonstration environment I'm using is one hosted by Micro Focus. So it is, I think the servers are in Las Vegas, so there is a little bit of a delay as I do these. So I'll try to keep you entertained as things happen. Let's minimize this Word document, Word program. Come back to my date filed search today, and I'm just going to refresh those search results. And what we should end up seeing in a few seconds is the document I just created. And sure enough, it is. Record number 444 has been created in Word. Now, once a document is in Word, if you are utilizing the document management feature of Content Manager, that would imply that a user has the ability to check out that document, make changes, and check it back in as a new revision. So let's see how that could work. One way, a user could work directly in Content Manager. They could right click on the record, select down here the check in or check out. In this case, we would probably want the edit option. What editing will do is lock down that record so no one else can check it out, and it will also open up the native application. In this case, it's Microsoft Word. We'll give it a few seconds to respond. Again, it's just an internet delay. All right, so maybe I want to come in here and I would put maybe something like, dear people, enter. So I've now edited this document. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. And what I would do now is save. I'm trying to illustrate normal actions that a user would do. They would save the record, maybe, or they might even go right to the close. And of course, when you do that, it's going to ask you if you want to save it. So I'm going to close it. Now the integration with Word works to the point that it kind of keeps its eye on it. So from Content Manager to Word, once I've closed this document down in Word, Content Manager knows it has been closed. And if I go to the Preview tab, the version we should see here should have that little dear people. And sure enough, it does. That represents the current version of the Word document. You do have the ability to go back and view one previous version. So if I click previous, you'll see the original one I would put in. And in a situation where you have multiple revisions, 4, 5, or 6, they too are all accessible, but you will only ever see the current one and the one previous. And that's what we're seeing here. Another way of editing this document is from the Word document or the Word program itself. If I go back to Word and I go File, and I'm actually going to put this full screen so we can get a better view, and I go to Content Manager. So what this will do is it will actually open up Content Manager, open up a Content Manager menu for you, and you can see I can access documents checked out, recent documents, which are ones that I've created recently, favorite records, and my work tray. Or I could always do a browse, which will invoke the search method in Content Manager. Let's just do recent documents because I just created that one a few seconds ago. Now this is taking you to the tray in Content Manager. You can always access it within the Content Manager as well. And again, don't be alarmed by the not responding. It is just the fact that I'm working on a image through the internet. Okay, there we go. There's my record 444, but it also lists other records that I've created. Now, recent documents are, I think, the top 25 that you've used in the last while. So as you create new ones, the older ones get pushed out. I can grab my 444, click OK, and now it'll open up in Word the same way that it would have a document from, say, a network share. Hopefully I got the little background music going. Okay, dear people, and maybe just say I'm going to edit this one more time. I'll click in here and I'll go regarding some fun stuff, just like that. And finally, now the last time, if you recall, I actually saved it. This time I'm just going to go to the close. Now a normal Word action, when you go right to close, it's going to ask you, do you want to save it? At this particular point in time, I do or I don't. If I don't, it's going to discard the changes and check back in that original version. If I do want to save changes, which I clicked on yes, it's going to take a few seconds. And remember, I did close it, so it will shut down the document, which it did. I'm going to go back to my Word. Whoop, not that one. That's Outlook. That's the next video, or the next part of the video. Let's go back to Content Manager. And here. Now, some things that I have exposed in terms of metadata. So right there, you can see that there are 3 revisions. That's the first one I created, the second one where I added dear people, and the third one when I added the re. So it has already been registered back into Content Manager. Again, if I check the Preview tab, it'll refresh itself, and you see there's the fun stuff. And now the previous version is the version that just shows the dear people. If I need to access the first revision, I'll show you how we can do that. Right click, go to Properties. Once the Properties loads, there will be a Revisions tab. Spoiler alert. I'm doing this video straight to, or live to recording, or live to tape, if you want to call it that. So the delays are real time. So I do apologize for that. I'm probably on the phone talking to you as well if you want. So here, now I'm going to go to my revisions, which is here. And you can see the list of all of the revisions 1 and 2. If we're trying to access 1, of course, now that I can see it, I can right click on it and I would have the same options to view it or even extract it. And you can even promote it back to revision 4. So you have a lot of flexibility when we have the document management enabled in Content Manager. So let me cancel out of this view. I didn't make any changes, so I'm going to just say no, and I'm back to my Word demo, and I'm back to my properties. So that represents how you could save a document from Word into Content Manager, how you can open a document from both Content Manager and from Word itself and make edits. The ability to keep revisions is an option and can be turned off, as well as the ability to even edit documents is an option and can be turned off. If both of those options are turned off, then effectively anything you put into Content Manager would be, quote, final, would be unable to be changed. Okay. Let's take a look at Outlook, another common office tool. So here I'm looking at my inbox. Excuse me. Let's take a drink of water here. So here I'm looking at my inbox, and if I want to register a record, it's the same toolbar, same actions as we saw in Word. I would highlight my email message, go to the Content Manager ribbon, and I have the ability to check in. In most organizations, once you start the check-in process, you're going to first select a record type. It is possible to default a record type, but in most organizations there are many record types. So to make a default decision could be costly. It's going to exclude you from selecting possibly other record types. So in this case, we do have to select a record type each time. I'm going to look for an appropriate record type, which in this case might be email, and click OK to continue. The continuation will take you on to the registration form. Now, in this case, it looks like it's starting to process something. It might be invoking the web client or the web client interface, which will also give us another view of the registration process. Okay, so there's our new email. You can see it has picked up the title as, or at least the subject as the title. Now, of course, that's very long. So what I might want to do is just kind of delete that and amend the title a little bit. Review the rest of the information as required by an organization. Mandatory fields could be indicated if wished. And then I'm going to click OK. Now, one thing that's special about email is it cannot be changed. So once a record goes in, whether or not it cannot be ever edited or checked out or changed. Another thing that happens is you'll notice a prefix has been amended to the subject that is CM:. That would indicate to a user that this record has already been registered into Content Manager. There are other ways to prevent that. We can do deduplication, or what we more accurately refer to as single instancing. So if I tried to put this record in again or this email message in again, it would give me a warning that it already exists. Other than that, we have a visual cue. There's even more options we could turn on that would potentially delete the email message once it's been registered, and therefore it would be out of my inbox. And that's all design decisions that we can make during the business analysis state. I'm going to go back to Content Manager. Refresh this search for items registered today. And now we should see 2 records when it refreshes itself. There we go. Record 444, and we have an email message 1-19. So we can see that email has been in. Notice the difference. When I right click on this email message, there's no ability to check it out or to edit it. When I click on my Word document, I do have the ability to edit, check in, or check out. So that's slight differences, nature of the email, whether you you can enable it anyways. Emails are kind of always preserved for authenticity. Okay, so we've looked at Word, we've looked at desktop Outlook. Let's take a look at the web. Okay, so here's the web client. What I can do is refresh this, because don't forget I have just created a few recent documents. So I'll let the web page load. I also have a couple of other pages loaded up as well. Give this one a second to load. Here we go. What I'm expecting to see when it refreshes itself is over here on the recent documents, we should see our email and that Word document that we recently registered. Okay, I'll give it some time to think. Let me jump on over to SharePoint and we can take a look at what happens with SharePoint. Okay, so this SharePoint site is a great indication or example of what a SharePoint site might look like. For these records up here, the first 2 or 3, you can see that there is actually a record number. So that would tell the user that this item is in and potentially being managed by Content Manager. We see here a flag called finalized, yes or no, and we have some records here that don't have a Content Manager type record number. That means they have not been registered. This SharePoint site exists in kind of what I would refer to as a passive, an active phase, which means it requires something to be done by the user in order to get this into Content Manager. In this case, setting the finalized flag as true will start the lifetime management policy to move that record from SharePoint into Content Manager. So let's see how that works. Let's grab this employee assistance program. I'm going to just click on this record to highlight it. And then I'm going to go up to my Files toolbar, which is already open, and I'm going to edit the item. Edit the properties of the item. I'll just wait for the SharePoint site to load. Now again, the image we're using is remote, and this is a pretty heavy image. It has Structured Data Manager, it has Control Point, it has a database, it has Content Manager. So it runs relatively slow, especially when you're doing a demonstration. Okay, so finally we have our SharePoint site has been loaded up. There's the Employee Assistance Program. We have a title, and I'm going to do finalize. So once I hit this check mark, that's going to invoke the lifetime management policy that's going to move it. So I'm going to click Save. And we'll wait a few more seconds for it to go back. And you can just see that it is spinning. I don't want to get too overzealous and rush this, so we'll just let it go at its own pace. There is a lot of in the background happening. What's happening is the lifetime policy, management policy needs to be invoked, and then it has to go to Content Manager and get a record number and then be able to update the documents. Here it comes. It is starting to make some action now. Okay, so at this point in time, before we refresh it yet again, you can see that the finalized state has been active, yes, but there's still no record number. So we'll take a few seconds for that lifetime management policy to kick in and realize that the flag has been set. One of the advantages of this particular integration with SharePoint is the user can work in an area where they're already comfortable. They don't need to necessarily learn Content Manager. They can work in SharePoint, create in SharePoint as if they normally do. And what we've done behind the scenes is we've built this integration that looks for changes to the record. In this case, once that finalized flag is done. And you can see these other documents can sit in SharePoint. They can exist in SharePoint, be edited, checked in, checked out, and you can rely on SharePoint and SharePoint security to control what access users have and what they can do. All right, let me just refresh this page. See if it is able to update with the SharePoint number, or with the Content Manager number, I should say. Okay, it's still not in. I'll have to wait a little bit longer, which gives me an opportunity to jump on over and show you Outlook Online. All right, so let's look at this email that I have. So we'll come back to the SharePoint in a moment. We'll just give it some time to run. Okay, so this represents an employee called Jeff Norris, and he is he's using the Outlook integration. Excuse me. He's using the Outlook integration in the email client. So he's got some emails from the administrator, some reports, some guidance, a journal. What he can do while he's on, while he's here using his Outlook, is right now he is unable to register anything into Content Manager on the assumption he does not have any folders. So what we're going to do for Mr. Norris is set up a linked folder, and we're going to do that using the email link. So I already have this window open. over here. All right. All right, so in the email link is where you can control the back end and all of the different configurations for email. So what I want to do is set up a check-in style for Jeff to use in his Outlook. So as the administrator, I'm going to go into Content Manager. I'm going to go into what we call check-in styles. Check-in styles is basically like a little definition of how something is going to register into Content Manager. I'm going to click a new check-in style. And you should see it okay. It's coming up. Again, hopefully the music's playing. Yep, the music's playing in the background, so hopefully it's entertaining you while we wait for these pages to load. What I might do is in the video is I'll put little jump spots maybe that we can jump ahead if we need to for these quiet times. All right. All right, so we are creating a new check-in style. All right, so the name of this will be Web Demo. I'm going to give it a name. Now, just to speed up this process, what I'm actually going to do is give the owner Jeff Norris. So I'm going to put in Jeff's name. Like that. We should be able to find Jeff Norris. Now, I'm linking this particular check-in style to a user. Could also be linked to an organization, which means everybody in that organization would have access to it. But I'm just doing the example this time using a user. I want things to be linked to email. I could preset a container that they go into, and I could also preset a classification or category that they go to. I'm going to go down to the processing. Oh, I don't want this. Click off that for a second. Try to get that file plan to close. There we go. So what I want to do is I want to automatically create server-side email capture folders. And that's going to make them show up in Jeff's web account. So I'm going to turn that one on. It's going to be a normal folder. And if possible, delay or display a data entry form for new records. So let me try and turn that one on. If possible, display a data entry form for new records. So let's turn that one on so we can see. So I'm going to make those final adjustments, click Save, and now I have an email folder called Web Demo, and I've associated it with Jeff Norris. Go back to Jeff Norris's online Outlook. Now I'm going to try a refresh for Jeff to see if it comes in. It should update his folder structure here, but we'll have to give it a second to process. Make sure it registered that refresh. There we go. Here it comes. I know the video, I know I seem to be jumping around from one thing to the other. I'm not trying to confuse, but just based on the speed of this video or the speed of this image, things are taking a little bit longer to appear. So I'm trying to do other things while processing is being done in the background. All right. So I don't think yeah, it has. There it is. I was about to say, I don't think it appeared, but sure enough, it has appeared. You can see a little CM window here has popped up, and that will, if I click on that, that will show that new folder that I created for Jeff. Oh, I didn't find anything yet. I might have to wait a little bit longer for the subfolder to appear. But already you can see that it's starting to build that integration. Let's go take a look at our SharePoint site before we get too far ahead. See if that lifetime management policy has kicked in yet. I think they were set to run at a reasonably fast interval. And sure enough, they have. Great. Okay, so 5 minutes ago, we went into this employee assistance file and we changed the flag from the finalized flag we activated. Basically, it was turned off, we turned it on, and then we waited. We saw initially that it was marked as finalized, and then I went away and did something else. Coming back here now, we can see that we have been assigned a SharePoint, or at least a record number from Content Manager. That means that that record is now in Content Manager. So let's go take a look at Content Manager. Click on it here. I'll refresh this search results. And while it's refreshing, I'll just take another sip of water. And remember, we're doing records created today. And sure enough, you can see the Employee Assistant Program record is now in Content Manager. You might notice that there's not a Word document like there is on this first record we created. It's more of a metadata label, which is okay. That's just basically telling you that this item is still in SharePoint, but it's kind of managed in Content Manager. Content Manager is aware of its existence and it has given it a record number. If you want to preview that record, what will happen when you click on the preview tab, it will actually go and bring back a view of that record, but it's actually querying SharePoint because it's not technically in the Content Manager repository at this point. Only the metadata about that record is. And that's pretty significant in terms of storage space. We're not occupying this document in 2 locations in your organization. Now we can get a little bit deeper on the SharePoint integration in terms of the stages. We have finalized, archived, relocated. There's 4 different states that SharePoint and Content Manager can have. We're just looking at the first one, which is basically managed by Content Manager. And we can see our 3 records. The last thing I want to do, hopefully go back and take a look at Jeff Norris's email, his web email. Let's see if that folder has appeared yet. I might do one more. Actually, I might sign. Well, let me get a second. I do apologize for these delays. I could be doing this live. At least I will have the ability to do this live if necessary. I'll still have this image available after you've watched the video. Let me do one more refresh and see if I can't get that back. Okay, it's refreshing one more time. So the whole point of this is to just show you how Office, modern day Office 365 integrates with Content Manager. Now I do see a little improvement on that CM dropdown, telling me there should be a subfolder underneath here, which is making me feel a little bit better about it. There we go. So there's that check-in style called web demo that I created earlier. Now what Jeff can do when he gets an email, he can take it like this, and I can send it. Let me see if I can drag and drop it. Yep, there we go. So this is drag and drop action on the web client right into the web demo folder. And look at that, nothing happened. Now, what's the significance of nothing happening? I defaulted everything and I told the check-in style what to do. So let's go see what happened. Let's go to Content Manager. Let me refresh this search one more time. Click the preview button. There we go. This will come through pretty quick. And there we go. Sure enough, we have the 219 record, and that is the TPS report. So the 219 reference is just the record number. It's the second record created in 2019. But that, of course, was the email that Jeff Norris used from his online Outlook account. All right. So to recap, at this particular point in time, what we've seen here in this case, Jeff Norris is a user using Office Online. Does not necessarily need to have anything to do with Content Manager installed on the desktop. He was able to drag and drop an email into a web folder. Whoops, let me minimize this one. I wasn't expecting that to pop up. He simply drags and drops an email from the inbox into the web demo folder, and then it gets processed into Content Manager. The second thing we saw was the ability for a normal user using desktop Outlook to do effectively the same thing. They could grab an email and check it in. Notice here, I'll also show you the check-in styles. So if I do a check-in style, you can see there are some predefined check-in, or not predefined, I should say, already created check-in styles that are also available on the desktop client. So I could use different styles. Now, check-in style, again, is just like a check-in profile. It gives the user the ability to save some defaults, a category, a container, a record type they want to use. Maybe some options in terms of deletion. All of that is contained in a check-in style. Again, check-in styles could be developed through the business analysis phase. But a user working in desktop Outlook or web Outlook has the same ability to register documents. In one case, they don't even need the desktop client for Content Manager installed. And then the last piece we looked at was how we integrate and work with Microsoft Word. The Word integration gives the user the ability to open from Content Manager, open from a desktop, open from a network, and save it to Content Manager. Metadata options are the same regardless of what the user is doing. The last thing I will show you as a bonus, which almost goes without saying, is the ability to drag and drop. So let me just close down my windows. I'm going to just move Content Manager a little bit over here. Going to close down my open windows. I have a lot of them, so I'm going to go to the View, Close All. And I'm going to find this 2018 document called Group Insurance. And the last way, one of the easiest ways to get a record into Content Manager is to drag and drop it. It pops up with the particular type of record type we want. Click OK. Now it will come up with the registration form for that record type. In this case, it didn't. Now, why didn't it come up? It came up the other time. So what happens is, if all of the metadata requirements are met, then Content Manager doesn't necessarily need to put you a form up. That is a system configurable option. You could have that form displayed regardless of whether or not all the metadata requirements have been satisfied. And in this case, the decision was made not to display that form, that if all metadata requirements were met, the record would be created. There we have record 445, and you can see it's the one I dragged from my desktop. Again, I'll refresh the search I created, dates filed today, and we should now have 5 records. There we go, and our group insurance policy. So hopefully this video provided you an overview of the various ways a user can interact with Content Manager. Some of them require the desktop to be installed, some of them don't. Some of the advantages to, say, using SharePoint and Office Online is familiarity and reduced training needs in Content Manager. It's always good for people to understand the basics of Content Manager, how to do some searches, either the web client or the desktop client. But the full training the full training requirements for the client aren't the same as if you intend on using Office 365 exclusively. On the alternative, if you do have the Content Manager desktop client installed on users, they can work there as well. Checking in, checking out, dragging and dropping, and a lot more functionality in terms of searching and search results. So both solutions have their advantages and their disadvantages, and that all depends on the business analysis and the user base and what works best for them. Before I go, the last thing I'll show you is the web client, a little bit of that. Here's our Content Manager web client interface. And I've been doing a lot of stuff today, so what I might do is go home. And over here on my recent documents, it should reload, and hopefully we should have 5 new documents, those ones we've created today. There's the group policy. There's the Content Manager. You can't quite see that, so let me move that over a little bit so you can see it better. I have a very big monitor, but I try to make the videos so that you can see them better. There we go. So right above my head, right up there, we've got the group policy, the notification, the web demo, and a few other documents that we've created. So that's your one advantage. Let me go up to full screen on this one. I can go to my records. And since while I'm here, let me show you one more way to create a record through the web client. Well, let me show you the good old drag and drop first. So I'm going to minimize my web client like this. Here, and here you thought the video was over. I'm sorry I keep talking. It just gets more exciting. There we go. Okay, so there's my web client. I'm just going to move it a little bit over here so we can see another record. So because I grabbed the one travel document, let me grab another one. Let me grab this receivables purchase. Now, if I want to drag this into the desktop or into the web client, all I need to do is grab it. And you'll notice if I hover over the web client for a moment, you can see I have this ability to move it. So let me just let go of it. And it pops up with a create new record. And again, like we've seen many times before, the choice to select a proper document, or should I say a proper record type. So I'm going to grab document. And then the metadata here is the same, or at least the metadata requirements will be solicited the same as they are in the desktop client. All right, so it wants a title. So I'm going to do Web Drag and Drop Demo. I can fill out all of the metadata that I want, and of course I will fill out the metadata that is required. And I don't know why that document didn't come in exactly. Let me try that again. Oh, okay. I'm noticing that I'm using Internet Explorer, and I might have an option turned off. So the drag and drop to the web client isn't exactly working, but that doesn't mean I can't go ahead and click this cloud here and go out and browse to my desktop to find it. So that's just a configuration change. I don't want to re-record this entire video, so I'm going to let that one go. And it's still thinking. I'll click on it again. It seemed to interpret my drag and drop as a move instead of a drag and drop onto it. So that's something that's happening with that one. It might not be responding properly. Let me try that again. All right, let me save that one first. Got this out of the way. I think it's caught in a little bit of a loop. And it's refreshing the web browser right now with stuff I've created. So there it is, the web and drag and drop video. So I will salvage this little hiccup here. What I have the ability to do is to, with the green arrow, check in. So because I don't actually have that thing or that file I dragged and dropped, which, like I explained a little bit earlier, is probably a configuration on the browser, what I'm going to do is check in a document from the web client. So again, imagine a user does not have the desktop installed. They can still check in records via the web client. So I'm going to hit the green arrow. It's going to, again, bring up some comments, give me the option of drag and drop. Now this time when I click on the cloud, it should invoke the Windows File Browse dialog. I'm waiting for that to appear. Sure enough, it comes. And what I would do is go to my desktop or wherever that particular file is located, grab my receivables purchase agreement, click open, and you will see an upload. Now that's what I would have expected before when I dragged and dropped. Unfortunately, it did not work as expected, but I was able to kind of show you another or an alternative method to ingesting a record. It does work drag and drop. I'm sorry it didn't work the first time. In this case, I went and retrieved the document from the location where I know it was. Click the check-in button. Once I get the green bar that it's 100%, click check-in, and that's behind me, so I'll move this way. Too late. But you can see now that the record type is represented by a Word document, which tells you there is an electronic copy there as well. So I think this has been a pretty long video. We've seen a lot. We've covered a lot of material. Obviously, you're either watching this before our meeting or during the meeting. If you have any questions, by all means, ask me now or during the meeting, and I will be sure to elaborate on some of the things you saw today. So thanks for watching. Hopefully it was exciting as records management can be, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.